If you're wondering whether or not a Eurail pass makes sense for your Europe trip, this honest review is going to give you 5 key considerations to make. Stay until the end and I'll even link you to a free quiz that I designed that'll help you make your choice. So without further ado, let's get started. Hit that intro. What's up, Smarties? In case you're new around here, my name is Christina and I help travelers like you travel Europe smarter, cheaper, and more off the beaten path. If you want more insider tips for your Europe trip, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell. Today we are tackling a pretty hot topic, and that is rail passes. Specifically, we're going to talk about the Eurail pass, which is a rail pass for non-European residents. Don't worry though, as a side note for my European friends, you guys also have something called the Interrail pass, which is more or less the exact same thing, so all of these tips will still apply to you. I'll make this quick. A Eurail pass can be a really great way to get around Europe, but whether or not it's worth it for you completely depends on factors like your budget, your priorities, your travel style, your age, and of course, where you're going. So, to help you out, here are 5 considerations to make before you get that Eurail pass. As a little disclaimer, all the information in this video is accurate as of 2019, but Eurail does have a habit of changing things a lot, so be sure to check out their website for things like prices and validity. Consideration number 1 is, what is your priority when you travel? See, there's a common misconception out there that using a rail pass is the cheapest way to travel around Europe. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case. I actually have a full video dedicated to the cheapest ways to travel around Europe, and most of the time there are cheaper options than a rail pass. Specifically when it comes to train travel, most of the time booking point-to-point tickets in advance is really going to be much cheaper. The downside to these point-to-point tickets though is that oftentimes you're locked into a certain date and a certain time. So to score and lock in those rock bottom fares, you just have to commit to that one specific slot and there's no room for flexibility. On the other hand, if you use a Eurail pass, it's the complete opposite. With a few exceptions where reservations are mandatory, you can usually just hop onto the train with your rail pass and take any journey that you want. So this is really, really great if you have a more spontaneous travel style or if you just want a little bit more flexibility when it comes to your travel plans. Plus, I do have to say that train travel is just so nice. It's honestly my favorite way to travel around Europe. I mean, it's a lot more comfortable than buses and airplanes. Plus, you know, with train stations, they're usually in the city center as opposed to on the outskirts of a city like an airport. So most of the time you are traveling from the city center of one place to the city center of another. And that's really, really valuable because it's super convenient for you to get to where you're staying. So in my opinion, if your priority is factors like convenience, flexibility, and comfort, then it makes a lot of sense to get a Eurail pass. For me personally, this past spring, that's when I used my Eurail pass, and the main goal was to actually go see some of my bucket list destinations in spring, places that, you know, had beautiful spring flowers. And so because blooming season varies year to year, I couldn't exactly book my tickets in advance. So instead what I did was I just waited for conditions to be optimal, and then I grabbed my rail pass and went. If I had purchased tickets on the day of, that would have been way more expensive. But because of the pass, I was able to just go whenever the flowers commanded, and it was perfect. So consideration number 2 is which Eurail pass you're actually buying. Gets a little bit confusing because honestly, when it comes to Eurail passes, that term gets tossed around a lot like it's one single entity, when in reality, there's a lot of different kinds of Eurail passes to consider. And really, the value that you're able to extract from your pass depends a lot on which one you buy. So the first consideration or distinction, I guess, that you need to make is in terms of the geographical area that your pass covers. This is actually pretty easy now because Eurail recently rehauled their entire system, and nowadays you can only purchase either a one-country pass or a global pass. So the one-country pass is pretty straightforward. You purchase one pass and it's valid for that one country only, whereas with the global pass, you actually gain access to Eurail's entire network, which is 31 countries, and that's a pretty big difference. So in my personal opinion, a one-country pass is very rarely worth it just because they're tremendously expensive and it's hard for you to get your money's worth. On the other hand, a global pass really can be worth it depending on where you go and how far apart your different stops are. For instance, I would say if you are traveling really far distances, then it might make more sense to actually buy just, a flight because time is money and you don't want to be spending 12 hours on a train when you could be spending 12 hours eating spaghetti. Back to the global pass though, I do think it can be really, really worth it if you plan a bunch of different legs that are only within a few hours of each other. For me personally, I use my global pass a lot going from Germany to Switzerland, and because they're neighbors, none of my train rides were ever more than a few hours. And in addition to that, they tend to be quite pricey countries for trains, so I got my money's worth for sure. The second distinction that you need to make with your Eurail pass is in terms of the validity period and the number of travel days that you get. So really, there are two kinds of passes that you can purchase. The continuous ticket, which is basically you purchase a ticket for a set period of time, and then every day of that period, you can ride a train and your pass is valid. On the other hand, you have the Flex Pass, which is basically you order a set number of days in a time period of 1 to 2 months. So you can say, I want 10 travel days in 2 months. And then on those specific days that you specify, you can ride as many trains as you want. I'll be honest, the continuous pass is very rarely worth it unless you're going to be traveling once every 1 or 2 days. On the other hand, I really do recommend a Flex Pass if you're going to be buying a Eurail pass, but of course it all comes down to where you're going to be traveling. So that brings me to consideration number 3, which is which countries you'll be visiting on your trip. The honest truth is with Eurail, there are certain countries that are much better for the pass than others. So for instance, I would absolutely not use the Eurail pass if you plan to travel extensively around France, Italy, and Portugal. The reason for that is that these countries require mandatory reservations on all their high-speed trains, which really racks up the costs for your pass. In addition to that, most of the time, point-to-point tickets in these countries aren't that expensive, so your savings with the pass wouldn't actually be that significant anyway. On a side note, Portugal doesn't even take reservations online, and you have to make them in person, and so it's just such a hot mess. Please don't use your Eurail pass in Portugal because the tickets are otherwise really affordable anyway. In addition to that, there are certain countries where bus travel is a lot more common than train travel, and for that reason, I would really avoid getting a rail pass for countries in Eastern Europe and the Balkans. On the other hand, there are certain countries that I think are amazing for the Eurail pass, and that includes Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom, which was only recently added in early 2019. So that's really great because trains in the UK are hysterically expensive. These countries, in my experience, are the ones that don't have mandatory reservations, and in addition to that, have very expensive point-to-point tickets. So you're likely to save a lot of money using a rail pass. For me, I personally use my Eurail pass a lot in Switzerland, where trains are notoriously expensive, and I actually use them on a lot of scenic, sightseeing trains, which would otherwise be like multiple times the cost, so I definitely got my money's worth. It's worth noting as well that during this 2-month period, I actually did go to Portugal, but I didn't use my rail pass once. And the reason for that, as I mentioned before, is that reservations can't be done online in Portugal, and so it just wasn't convenient, and the ticket was cheap anyway. So that's cool to keep in mind that, you don't necessarily need to use a travel day if you don't want to. If you can find a cheaper alternative like a flight, a bus, or something else, you can just save that travel day for the future. When in doubt though, be sure to search up point-to-point ticket prices for the countries that you're visiting, and also add up potential costs like reservation fees in order to figure out whether or not a Eurail pass actually makes sense for your trip. Consideration number 4 is how old are you? I know that that's a bit of a personal question, but it's an important one to keep in mind because Eurail actually has very, very good discounts for youth who are 27 years old or younger. How good are these discounts? Well, actually a youth pass tends to be about 20% lower than the adult pass, which is for adults aged 28 to 60. On that note, they actually have discounts for seniors who are age 60 plus as well. Unfortunately, it's not as good as the youth pass. It is about 10%, I believe, but still, it's a pretty good deal. And so if you want to consider getting a Eurail pass, know that the deal is a lot sweeter if you're 27 years old and under or 60 plus. And next up is consideration number 5, which is, are you going to be using the perks of your Eurail pass? See, the thing is, a lot of people assume that the Eurail pass is only a rail pass. But in addition to giving you access to trains, it also functions as a discount card. So with your Eurail pass, you get lots of different discounts at places like hostels, attractions, city passes, and different modes of transportation even, like ferries and buses. So what I would do if I were you is I would actually look at the different countries that you're going to be exploring and check the Eurail website to see what those additional perks are. Depending on your travel style, if you decide to use a lot of these perks, that would make the pass super, super worth it. For me personally, I didn't actually use the perks very much, apart from one time on a special train in Switzerland, where it saved me 25% off and saved me about 10 euros. So it can be a really good deal. It can offer a lot of great perks, but you have to really research and look at what perks they offer for your destination countries before you commit. So tell me, have you ever used a Eurail pass, or is that something that you'd like to do after watching this video? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and if you're still undecided and looking for that quiz, you can find that link down below. Thanks for watching, Smarties. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a nice little thumbs up, a comment with a virtual hug, a virtual pug, or whatever it is you want to do. But be sure to subscribe because more amazing Europe tips are coming your way every week. So be sure to hit that bell. Anyways, I will see you guys next week. Until then, you can probably find me doing some pretty dumb stuff on Instagram. So be sure to follow me below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!